Hey guys, it's Justin at the Survivor Review, and continuing with my look at the Superman movies, I'm not going to be doing Superman 3 right now. Instead, I'm going to talk about Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut. It's basically a reconstructed version of showing what could have been Richard Donner's Superman 2 if he had directed the whole film. Because, as I mentioned in the last video, he got fired halfway through filming and replaced by Richard Lester, who mostly added a ton of unnecessary comedy. So this movie brings it back to the darker, more serious tone roots of the first film, and it really feels like the true continuation of the first Superman movie. And that's why I like it a lot better than Superman 2. Like I said in the other video, I still think Superman 2 is a strong movie, but this takes like the great elements and just expands upon them. I'm not going to talk about the plot because I already mentioned that in the video, but in this movie, the villains are more of a threat. There's no goofy scenes of them going around that town and like Ursa, the girl one, getting in an arm wrestling contest. There's none of that. Instead, you mostly see them in the town destroying when all the army guys are coming at them. And then the scenes of them in the White House, which has one great moment where Zod takes a machine gun and just starts firing at people and just laughing as he's doing it. And you're like, yeah, that guy's kind of creepy. And, which you don't really get that vibe at all in the theatrical cut. One thing I love about this version is that Marlon Brando is back. They got all his footage because he did shoot everything for Superman 2. He shot everything for 1 and 2 like around the same time. And they brought that stuff back in and it fits so much better than having his Superman's mom talking, or like that random Kryptonian guy. It works so much better. It makes the scenes so much more engaging. And the one scene where Clark gets his powers back, the like repowering scene, is a very emotional and just very well done scene where he's just basically telling his dad that, yeah, he screwed up, he made a mistake. And then that one moment where Jor-El takes that human shape and walks up and touches Superman on the shoulder. Great moment. Just great movie moment. And it works all the better having seen Superman the movie and just having the story develop to that point. Just works perfectly. One minor flaw, and because it's something they couldn't really change, the original ending for Superman 2, back in the script, was going to be the turning back time ending. But for some reason, I've heard it was either I heard the studio liked it a lot, so they wanted to do this, or they didn't really have a good ending to 1, so they wanted to do this instead. They used that ending for Superman 1. And they said, okay, when we come back to 2, we'll think of it later. Well, Richard Donner never had that opportunity, so it was either he was going to use the Richard Lester magic kiss scene, which I don't get. Superman kisses Lois, makes her forget. And so they reuse the turning back time ending. And you have to go into this movie knowing that it's not a fully realized movie. Which sounds like a bad thing, and I can kind of see. I felt some of the scenes earlier in the movie, they kind of just played out as just like scenes. Because it'd be like, we need to use some Lester footage. And so like they need a scene of them attacking that town, but they don't want to do too much. They don't want to show too much Lester footage. So they show like a 2-minute clip, practice what feels like a clip of just them doing one little thing, and they cut to another scene. And I don't know if that made much sense, but it's mostly at the beginning of the movie. The flow isn't completely there, because you can tell that they were trying to just show as minimal Lester footage as they could. And even though some of it didn't work, I think they should have put a little more Lester footage in there to kind of just pad it out a bit and add a little more flow to it. But back on the ending, you have to understand that they couldn't really do anything. They were either going to have to reuse footage from Superman, from their Lester version, or just redo the ending. That's why they did it. They didn't do it because like they had the brilliant idea to have them turn back time again. So yeah, I don't really like when people complain about that because they have to understand. Like, there's actually one scene which is actually taken from a screen test. Because the scene where he's revealed to be Superman, they did that scene for the screen test for the actors, and they never got around to shooting it, and shooting the actual scene, and the Lester version was very different, and much stupider, and just saying, and they combined the Christopher Reeve screen test and the Margot Kidder screen test, and so it's obvious, like in the footage from the Margot Kidder screen test, Christopher Reeve has like long puffy hair. Then when it cuts to the shot from his screen test, it's really short hair, and it doesn't look at all like it does in the movies. It looks totally off. And if you know going in that it's going to be like that, that scene is not really distracting. It still plays out pretty well. Surprisingly, for just like a screen test scene without like the proper movie pacing, it still plays out pretty well. And I don't mind it because I know going in. But yeah, I think it's cool that they actually did that. Though. Instead of just like, okay, we'll have to reuse the Lester version where Superman trips and his hand falls in the fire and just, what? And adding on to the fact that villains are more of a threat, instead of that scene where they change the faces on Mount Rushmore, they actually knock down the Washington Monument. A little different. So that's why I like this one better. The tone is more intact. It has a more focused tone. It's less on like goofiness. There are some scenes earlier actually with Lex Luthor and Miss Tessmacher when they're going to the Fortress of Solitude. And there's some comedy bits in that actually kind of don't work and feel a little too comedic. Like Miss Tessmacher finding the bathroom in the Fortress of Solitude. And stuff like that did feel a little kind of like, you could have trimmed it a teeny bit. It's not as funny. But for the most part, this version of the film is a much superior cut. Even though it's not a fully realized movie, I still say check it out instead of seeing the Lester version. But like I said, go in knowing that it's not a fully realized movie, so when Superman spins back the Earth for a second time, you're not just like, are you serious? That's so stupid. You understand. And if you go in like that, you'll get it, and like I said, it just shows that if they had kept Richard Donner on the movies, what awesome franchise there could have been. Man, because he knows what he was doing. And the tone is great for these movies. And this movie, like I said, feels a lot like the first one. It feels like a really great continuation of the first one, like a part 2 of a 2-part story. Almost. And in that sense, it's really worth checking out. And out of 10, I can't give it like a perfect score, because like I said, some of the stuff in the beginning wasn't as fully like realized, and the fact that it's not really it's more of just a representation of a movie than like a full-on movie. I'm gonna go 9 out of 10. Very positive, and the best rating Superman sequel we'll get on here, which is kind of sad. And yeah, basically, if you guys didn't know about the Richard Donner cut, was kind of confused, hope this kind of informed you a little bit, got you to understand. And basically, that's the whole Superman 2 thing. And now we're going to go on in my next video to Superman 3, the movie where they gave Richard Lester, the guy who mostly likes comedy, complete creative control, and hired Richard Pryor as practically the main character. As you can tell, we're in for a classic, but that'll be coming soon. And until then, talk to you guys later.